Latest on the typhoons, Typhoon Lekima and Typhoon Krosa. We were at the bottom of the screen, the typhoon warnings that are in effect, we have now updated. So at the bottom of your screen are the latest warnings that are out right now. That is latest information. Typhoon warnings in effect for the southernmost Japanese islands and for large parts of northern Taiwan, as well as that gale warning extending further north as well. This is Force 13 Live. We're continuing to cover the situation as it happens. My name is Nathan Foy. I'm here with you again for another hour. You don't need to see me though. We have many other things going on here. Also, on the right-hand side of me right now, you can see another view from one of our team members, and we have many team members here with us tonight. In this hour, we're joined by David, Tim, and Isaac.
Good to be here again, and the Joint Typhoon Warning Center is updated.
And what are they saying, David?
I
thought you
sorry,
might...
I'm just... where are we? They have it at 39... No, hang on. That's Francisco. Apology, viewers.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh man.
Here we go. They have it at 22.7 degrees north, 126 east. They have it 115 knots, gusting 140.
Yes,
and they have it...
we knew that part. What's on the forecast though?
120 hours, 36.1 north, 120.5 down to 35 knots, gusting 45, and overland.
Interesting to note there, David, looking at the synoptics from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, it does take it up to 120 knots in the next 12 hours before backing it down
they've scaled it
to
down.
100.
They don't.
Yes,
they expect only a tiny amount of further strengthening now. That is an interesting development and somewhat surprising.
That's for the next 24 hours, Nathan.
And they actually have it gradually decreasing to 115 knots by 24 hours, 110 by 36, 100 knots by 48 hours, and then a drastic drop down to 75 knots at 72 hours. That might be due to either interaction with Taiwan, or by that point we could be looking at it maybe impacting mainland China by that point.
We're still sticking with Isaac's imagery right now, so please keep it right there. What's the radar doing right now?
Well, it's freaking out.
Freaking out.
That's the only way I could explain it. It's been doing that now, unfortunately. I don't know if the radar is overheating or having any issues over there, but it keeps doing that, unfortunately.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, that happens with radars. It happens over here in the States sometimes. I know with the Guam radar that happened too, and they had to shut it off for a few hours while they fixed it. So that does happen. But I don't know what these particular radars, they're different radars, I believe, than the United States uses.
It's 10 a.m. in Taiwan, 11 o'clock in Japan this morning. So these are the last minutes in some instances to prepare for this storm, especially on those Japanese islands, because tropical storm force winds, that's dangerous winds there, are about to arrive. We think. At the minute, wind speeds on the Japanese islands, Ishigaki, 36 miles per hour. Tropical storm conditions begin at 40 miles per hour.
Someone asked, what are the chances of Lekima to impact Manila, Philippines?
Well, if you've not seen anything in Manila so far, you're not going to see anything from this storm.
No, I had looked at Pagasa earlier. They've got Signal 1 warnings for the northernmost islands off of Luzon, and that's about all the worst impacts that you may see in terms of Philippine impacts.
Just looking again at that imagery right now, and still very inconclusive.
In fact, let me go ahead and update that.
I'm going to
It's a little
update
bit
mine
old.
as well and see what we can find. This is Ram Slider. Let's see if we've got anything interesting. Any new developments? Okay, nothing's really working at all there. Now will it run? I don't know.
Oh,
What
it's
what
trying
is
to clear
going on,
the-
Isaac? It looks you know,
it's-
if you were going off satellite imagery alone, you would say that looking at that, it looks like the western side of the eye is completely open. But radar doesn't say anything like that, does it?
It does say it's slightly open to the southwest there. If you see the curve there, it's slightly open to the west, but that's not the inner eye wall, that's the outer. On
Keeping
satellite, looks like
steady at
the
the moment.
eye is trying to clear out a tad at the very last few frames when it goes up there. You see it clear out a tiny bit more, but that's not much really.
And that, by the way, is now a good hour of pretty much northward movement.
Yeah, it's doing a little bit of cyclonic loops there in a frame too. Or trichodal loops. I think that's how it's said, right? I can't grammar today.
No, it's all right, Isaac. Looking at rapid scan, Nathan, it does look like that there is a bit of a break in the southern eye wall. Just looking off the rapid scan as of about
I'm convinced personally
about
that
45 minutes ago.
I'm convinced that there's breaks all over the eye wall.
Well, yeah, this one in the south is really evident, though. It's more on the outer eye wall, though.
It just can't make up its mind. Yeah, this is kind of reminding me of U2 in a way. After it peaked out, it couldn't decide whether or not it wanted to clear out its eye or not for 3 days or so, something like that.
Got some latest observations from 11 o'clock Japan time on the Miyakojima Yayama Islands. There haven't been any stronger winds in the last hour, so the maximum so far is still 36 miles per hour. That's 16 meters per second. In the last hour, it's measured 16 meters per second, which has obviously tied it. That is at Takorono on Yonaguni. The maximum wind speed recorded on Ishigaki is 14 meters per second, which is about 31 miles per hour. So those are some latest observations. Rainfall amounts in the last hour as well, for those who are interested. 3.5 millimeters on Ishigaki, 1 millimeter over in Miyakojima, and 3 on Yonaguni.
And that rainfall was evident on this live camera out of Cicada, which is on Ishigaki Island. There was some drops of rain on the camera. Actually, there's still a couple droplets still showing up on the live camera there. So yeah, we did have a little bit of rain go through that area recently.
Could you show us again?
I actually still have the camera up. You can actually see still a couple droplets on the lens of this camera as it pans around.
Could you show us that, Tim?
Oh, I thought I had that up.
No, sir.
Oh, let me
Afraid
throw
not.
that up then. There we go.
In the meantime, whilst we look at that again, the amount of rainfall that has fallen over Ishigaki so far this morning, since midnight, has been 17 millimeters. The temperature there is 29 degrees Celsius, and something that is actually strikingly interesting. The pressure now at that location is down to 987 millibars. As the rain
987.
streaks across the camera there. So 150 miles away, and it is 987 millibars. Just another idea of how broad this storm is, that a pressure can be as low as that. In fact, Miyakojima is slightly lower, 986.9 at Miyakojima. That's 150 miles away from the storm center. 986.9. And that imagery again is on Ishigaki.
Yep, it is on the northern side. Ishigaki Island. It is in the town of Sakeda, which is on the northwestern edge of the island.
Something else, just mentioning Manila earlier, one of the viewers, won't quite be Manila, but with 96W, it is actually delivering a significant amount of rain to the sea areas with that thunderstorm popping up. You know, if that convection continues, there's a lot of rain in that black blob down there. When it strikes, if it strikes the western coast of Luzon, that could cause some flash flooding as it gets sucked into the gravity of Lekima.
Yeah, if I remember right, that is real Earth imagery that you got, Nathan. That black there, I believe, was 50 millimeters of rain per hour.
Or more.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a look at Krosa's structure again. And just to point this out again as we zoom in, Iwajima underneath there somewhere. I think it's that
And
middle island that is right under some really heavy stuff right now. So, Tim, if Iwajima have a webcam, it's probably going to be more interesting to actually look at that one right now.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that right quick.
There's been some real significant rainfall there by the looks of things. So we switch back to visible. Let's get another new visible image and see how things are looking. You won't notice a huge amount of change frame by frame, but over time, as you continue to watch, I mean, you know, that is just pretty picturesque from an objective standpoint. They are beautiful but very dangerous works of nature, as the channel description on Force 13 has described ever since we launched nearly 8 years ago. Lekima is still easily the strongest of the two storms, even though Krosa is easily the largest of the two. And Lekima still poses the biggest threat, obviously with the larger populations involved, but over the next 5 days, beyond 5 days, towards 7-8 days, Krosa could go on to affect parts of Japan, the mainland, the main islands, and possibly even the Tokyo area. If you've got questions for us live right now, we are still running. Send us a message. Start your message with Force 13 all in text in the chat section on YouTube. And David, are you with us?
I am here.
Are we streaming to Facebook?
No, we're not. Unfortunately, I had to go out. So yes, but if you live streaming tomorrow, it'll definitely be operational.
That's what he always says.
Thank you.
All right. Well, there we go. Get people on the YouTube. I know that a lot of people in East Asia have Facebook as their go-to source more than YouTube. with these kinds of things. Okay, a question has just come in. What causes an eye wall replacement cycle? Isaac, any ideas?
Hold on.
It's still an area that is not particularly well understood, is it? How eye wall replacement cycles are initiated.
Yeah, it's still being studied to this day. You can't necessarily say you have a Category 3 typhoon in the basin. You can't necessarily say, oh, it's going to have an eye wall replacement cycle in 2 hours from now. You can't really do that. It's not really an exact
It would be so
science.
much easier if we could predict when an eye wall replacement cycle might occur.
Exactly, it would. But unfortunately, we're not that technical. If I can even say it right,
Technologically advanced.
Yes, I
There you
can't
go,
speak
helped you
today
out.
for some reason. Thank you, Nathan.
There's another question. How far out do typhoon force winds extend from the eye of Lekima? Do you have the JTWC update on that?
I could pull it. I don't have it on my laptop, but I have it on my phone here. Just give me about a minute here.
Maybe David could help us out on that one.
I actually
Per
have
chance.
the last advisory
What was
still
the
available.
question?
Don't worry, I've got it
Yeah,
myself. I'll just go get it myself. It extends out 60 nautical miles in the northeast and southeast, and 50 nautical miles in the southwest and northwest in kilometers. That is roughly something
90 to
120
100 kilometers.
120 kilometers out towards the northeast and southeast, and about 100 or 105 to the western semicircle. So quite some distance for that at this point. A question: why has there been a tropical weather statement for a month in South Louisiana? I've no idea. That is such an odd question. I cannot answer that right now because it's not our area. There must be an issue.
I will take a look at that
Must be
since
some
that's
kind of
more
issue.
on the U.S. front. Yeah, let me take a look at that.
Pretty soon, towards the end of this hour, we're going to get some new intensity estimates as well. And we'll also get new CDPS estimates before the end of this hour. So stay tuned for that. And I don't know how long we're going to stream for tonight. This may well be the last hour of coverage for now. But when we go away and recuperate for a few hours or whatever we're doing, we'll come back. We'll leave the streaming service running so there's always something on the screen and people can check in whenever they like just to see what's going on. I believe now we've got a visual from the International Space Station, which should be passing over some of these storms pretty soon. David, where is it right now?
Coming up on the southern side of Indonesia.
So Indonesia, it moves at 17,000 miles per hour. It scales the globe every 90 minutes. And it is approaching the typhoons again. Roughly an hour and a half ago, we were looking at the same sort of pictures as it caught the eastern edge of Typhoon Krosa. We're wondering whether this time maybe we'll get to see the Eye of Lekima. If we're lucky, fingers crossed. We'll wait and see whether we get that, what would be an amazing picture. Not the best kind of imagery quality out of the International Space Station tonight, it would seem. I don't know whether it's because the sun glare is causing an issue or something there.
David, do we know if they're still looking to the west off the International Space Station?
We are looking towards the northeast.
Northeast. All right, well, then that means
Yes.
we will miss Lekima,
Damn it.
but we may see Krosa, at least with its current path.
Well, whatever we see, it'll be on the the northwest. and probably northeast.
Well, at the moment, I think we're just looking at some clouds. I don't think this is anything related to the typhoons yet. A few more minutes and it should pass over. Is there anything else we could look at in the meantime? Not really. Just the same information, really. If you've just joined us, we're looking at the International Space Station, which will pass over Typhoon Lekima and Krosa shortly. Typhoon Lekima is a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It has winds of approximately 145 miles per hour on our estimates, which is 240 kilometers per hour sustained with higher gusts. Typhoon Krosa is at least a mid-range Category 1, and we'll have updates on both of these intensities in the next 20-30 minutes. Typhoon warnings are in effect for the southernmost Ryukyu Islands, the Miyakojima Yayama Islands. Also, typhoon warning now for northern parts of Taiwan, as well as an extremely heavy rain advisory. And we are getting reports from the ground, and we are very much indebted to these people for assisting us in our coverage, as they actually are doing, by letting us know that it is getting fairly gusty in Taipei, even though the sun is still out. And this can happen on the onset of a tropical storm, a typhoon with such a large wind field. 36-mile-an-hour winds occurring, as we saw on Ishigaki, even though rainfall is actually sporadic.
Does that look like something in the northwest?
This looks like one of the typhoons coming up on the International Space Station. I'm not sure which one.
The International Space Station is about about 2 degrees and 114 degrees.
2 degrees north, 114 degrees east. So this might be Lekima appearing on the left-hand side.
Yes. Well, closer.
Don't say that.
21.8, 140. They're so close together, so
They are. I think the hunch is that this might be Lekima on the left-hand side. This is live from the International Space Station. I'm just trying to see if we can get any extra information. Maybe it's not anything yet, actually. It's still not yet over the Philippines, so we should see something very soon.
But quite a bit of cloud.
You should see Lekima on the left-hand side, and Krosa will be probably offshot on the right-hand side in the next 5 minutes. So we're just leaving with this imagery for the time being, just to see whether we can see the storm from the International Space Station, which does provide outstanding views. You're not missing much elsewhere. The storm Lekima is moving fairly slowly, around 8 miles per hour. It's around 13 kilometers per hour. Towards the northwest, or maybe north-northwest in the last hour. So I think in the very distance there might be the beginning of Lekima now. Jumped the gun with that first estimate before, when we thought we were seeing the storm. We weren't. I think it is now coming up. Whether we see very much on what is admittedly pretty poor quality imagery, that's not our fault, I'm afraid. Nothing we can do about that. not as
Hopefully the astronauts might, if they're viewing, they might be able to turn the camera a bit.
I have the suspicion that this is a fixed camera position. Looks like you can see some banding for Lekima now coming up there. The International Space Station is now moving directly over the Philippines and is moving northeast, so that is definitely Lekima coming up on the left-hand side. And we will run with this for a couple more minutes whilst the International Space Station passes. You won't see Krosa at all. It is well off towards the right-hand side of the image.
It actually looks like its current track will take it just to the east of Lekima, so we will actually get some really good shots.
I think we are starting to see the center of the storm there, just about near the solar panel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure the center of the storm might be down there. We're going to keep rolling with this. It travels
It's
so
going to be
quickly
close, yeah.
when you think about it. 2 minutes ago it was over Borneo. Now it's just about to clear the Philippines and is continuing northeast. So the center of Lekima on the left hand side, it's going to fall behind the solar panel before we get good enough resolution to see its eye. I believe that. But there it is. If you manage to spot the eye, maybe you could put the image on high contrast and send it to us or something. I don't think anyone got anything from that though.
And the eye's only 7 nautical miles, right?
Very small eye. Well, that is clearly Lekima there on the left hand side. The eye is somewhere underneath that solar panel now. Might just catch a glimpse, maybe. It is a fairly shallow eye, however. It's not going to be one of those extremely impressive ones like we saw with Mancut last year. We got that one live as
Oh, no,
well.
it's a beauty.
And again, just about moving over the worst part of the storm there. And maybe a slight indentation on the left hand side there. Might be its eye there. But I can't really tell that one for certain.
Yeah, it does look like that is the eye that is just now below the solar panel there.
Yes, I can
you
see
can
it.
see some of the banding there.
That would appear to be Lekima's eye down there, bottom left hand side. That's just about to fade off the screen, I think.
Yeah, it is, because you can see the banding going around the outer edges of it. That's the outer eye wall there with the little bit of the blackish clouds going around the entire pipe, and then that little black dimple that's getting ready to go off the bottom left. Yeah, that would be Lekima's eye there.
So that was a view from the International Space Station. Shame about the quality. If it looked better, if it was higher resolution, if they had their other cameras working, we might have seen a lot more. But
apparently it's offline, and they're working on it. So they only have this one, to my knowledge.
There we go. Now running with Isaac's imagery just for a brief moment whilst we get another latest image from Himawari visible, just to show you what Lekima would have looked like if we had full resolution on that. That is the latest image of Lekima as of half an hour ago.
They also don't have the... Go on.
A little something to note here, Nathan, while we are looking at that new imagery. Looking at that webcam in Sakita, Ishigaki, it is getting very gusty there now on Ishigaki Island. Webcam showing a lot of these trees blowing around really
Let's get that on
intense
here
now.
for a few moments. We'll just run with that for a short while here. So the wind's starting to get up, and of course in about half an hour, in about 40 minutes, we'll have more information about whether those winds have increased. We're probably going to call it a night at the end of this hour after we do our latest analysis of these two storms' wind speeds. What we will do when we reach the end of that hour, when we stop talking for good for the night, we will then run our automated streaming service, which will basically a merry-go-round of graphics that update automatically, and you'll be able to see the latest information. Not as exciting as seeing everything as we are whilst we're commentating on it, but at least we get to see something throughout the early hours of the morning here at Force 13 HQ and late hours of the morning over there in Asia. So very difficult also when considering that a lot of our team are away at this time of year, summer activities, and so we're left with a bit of a skeleton crew and time zones as well. But the reason why, you know, people might say, hey, stay on the air, well, you know, we want to be on the air tomorrow, well, tonight local time, overnight hours in East Asia, when this storm impacts fully the islands. We'll probably be more of use to you at that point than we are right now.
Do have some reports out of Taiwan here, Nathan. These are some of the weather stations in Taiwan, and I can actually call some of these out. Yangming Shan reporting with 19 millimeters of rain as of 10:10 local time. Pressure there has dropped to 996 millibars in that area, and we have a reported wind gust out of Datun Shan of 22.6 meters per second. So we are starting to see
that?
some Datun Shan, 22.6 meters per second wind gust. Anpu reporting a 15.5.
That's 50 miles an hour.
Yep, Yangming Shan.
Oh, wind gust. Okay, I thought you were talking about sustained.
No. The highest that I'm seeing is still out of Datun Shan, 11.3 meters per second. Yangming Shan reporting 19 millimeters of rain. And Wenshan reporting 16 millimeters of rain. This is all as of 10 o'clock local time.
Alright, we're going to take another short break here as we continue rolling with Tim's view right now. And we'll be back in just a few moments whilst we collect our thoughts and maybe conduct a bit of analysis. Tim, keep that graphic rolling for us if you can. And we'll be back with maybe some new information on these two storms. Don't go away. We're about to find out whether Lekima has got any stronger or not. See you in a few moments. Typhoon warnings in effect for the southernmost islands of Japan, the Ryukyu Islands. Also in effect for parts of northernmost Taiwan. We're back with coverage. Force 13 live, covering Typhoon Lekima and Typhoon Krosa live. This is a live look right now from Ishigaki, which could get the brunt of this storm tonight, local time. Current time there, 11:37 a.m. I'm joined again by our team, Tim and David, as well as Isaac, I believe, are all still here.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Let's switch to Isaac's imagery now. And there you go with both of those. Lekima now on the right, Krosa on the left.
Yep. Those are the infrared. On the left is the 10-minute imagery because the target area isn't over Krosa for obvious reasons. And then Lekima on target area, so it gets updates roughly every 2.5 minutes, give or take.
If we
It's mesoscale.
leave that on the screen for a few moments whilst I'm conducting some new satellite analysis for Lekima right now, and it's going to be interesting to see what Satid finds with this. The eye temperature is not so hot, minus 25 degrees Celsius, and the cloud tops around the eye are, well, what you'd expect really, I suppose, but this is certainly not a storm that's strengthening right now by the looks of things. David, your thoughts?
934 millibars, 110 knots, 22.1 degrees north, 126.4 degrees east. So, what was central pressure when this started?
Well, the pressure, we gave it at our last update, which is getting on for 3 hours ago now when we first started our stream, 935 millibars.
So it's dropped to millibar.
Possibly more than that, indeed.
Joint Typhoon Warning Center did say that it is likely to continue intensifying.
Well, this is fascinating. Latest Satid, I can tell you, is getting a wind speed on Lekima of 130 miles per hour, which is exactly the same as the JTWC at this hour. So that's what we're running with at the top of the hour, at the end of this hour. 130 miles per hour and a pressure of 935.
Nathan, just quickly adding to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, I haven't read all of the text, but they're saying possibly intensifying steadily for the next, 36 hours.
We still talking about Lekima?
Yes.
Well, I don't think so.
Would you agree or disagree with that?
When did they say that? They're only calling for a little bit of strengthening now, aren't they?
I think that's in their current advisory.
Oh.
I'll just double check. Tim, you got it there?
I do. Current advisory has it going up to 120 knots over the next 12 hours before it starts to slowly weaken over the next 2 days.
Yeah, it won't be quick. We don't think.
And we now have our first reading under 996 millibars. Nathan, Taipei checking in at 995.9 millibars. And we are getting some observations around Taiwan of some wind gusts getting up there fairly well. Anpu checking in with a 15.5 meter per second wind gust. Daji at 10.4 meters per second. Tianmu at 8.4. Shilin at 9.0. Daoushan with a 22.6. Pingdeng at 13.8. And we now have a couple more areas reporting more than 10 millimeters of rain. Yingmengshan at 19, PCCU at 14.5, Shipai at 13.5, Tianmu at 10, Daonshan at 11, and Wenshan at 16 millimeters respectively. So a lot of these outer bands and outflows that we're seeing coming off of Lekima are making it to the Taiwan mainland and dumping some rain in those areas.
Of course, the lowest pressures we've seen anywhere is in Japan so far. 986.9 we have seen on Miyakojima.
Nathan, Joint Typhoon Warnings Center, I mentioned the size of the eye. It's now expanded out to 8 nautical miles. And they're saying it's no longer rapidly intensifying, although the environment seems likely to support the intensity until land interaction becomes a factor.
Another thing to note is that. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was
you
going
go.
to say that another thing of note is that they lowered Krosa's peak intensity to 80 knots, and after that, it's supposed to maintain its intensity for a little bit and then gradually weaken as it nears Japan. Go ahead, David.
The typhoon will continue on its current northwest track under the influence of the steering ridge, start a more northward turn prior to 36 hours as the steering ridge shifts to the east and make landfall south of Shanghai on a northward track shortly after 48 hours. Favourable environment conditions will allow for continued intensification through the next 12 hours.
I can tell you that the latest analysis from Force 13 is also putting Krosa up slightly to 90 miles per hour and a pressure of 965. The graphics will reflect that information shortly. So the latest information that we are putting out now is that Lekima has weakened a little bit from what we had it earlier to 130 miles per hour, and that Typhoon Krosa has intensified slightly to 90 miles per hour and a pressure of 965.
And Nathan, it's got an obscured eye feature, Krosa, in animated multispectral satellite imagery. Animated and enhanced infrared imagery reveals that deep convection is present in 50 to 75% of the eye wall, and that is likely inhibiting the eye from becoming well formed.
Yeah, that's got a struggle on for sure.
Something interesting that I am noting, Nathan, I'm looking at the HWRF 18Z run. It now has Lekima threading between Ishigaki and Miyakojima instead of a direct landfall.
Right. And that is another eastward deviation right there.
Yes, it is. That's the HWRF. Let me see what the GFS is forecasting.
And whilst Tim's looking at that, Nathan, just back to Krosa, the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre is saying that Krosa is likely to undergo further intensification.
Yeah, how much is the real question now? So I expect we're going to be working out the CDPS scores for these storms now, the Cyclone Destruction Potential Scale. Lekima was a stage 10. That may have gone down somewhat. That doesn't mean that the storm isn't still dangerous. It is extremely dangerous. Stage 10, by the way, is a higher stage than Haiyan was. Just to remind you, Haiyan was a stage 9. Patricia was a stage 9. So strength isn't everything when it comes to the CDPS scale, and the fact that Lekima reached stage 10 is phenomenal and extremely worrying.
Yeah, I mean, especially if the storm decides to kind of maintain its strength all the way up until really it heads towards St. Hyde, it's going to be a really big issue for them. So definitely a storm to watch nonetheless, even if it decides to strengthen or not at this point.
It does appear, though, that the rain threat has decreased substantially for Taiwan. We now might be looking at maybe 400 millimeters of rain rather than 600. Still quite a lot, but nowhere near the amounts that tempt records to break in Taiwan. Used to a lot of rain at times, but flooding is still a potential issue there down those mountains. So we're just trying to work that one out as well. So yes, I've got the latest CDPS number now. For Lekima, it's now down to a CDPS stage 8. So still a very damaging, destructive storm on the cards. It would be ranked as catastrophic. Stage 8 out of 10. Not many storms get that high, even though Lekima has gone down a little bit on that. Stage 8.
And I'm crunching the numbers for Krosa. I will have that here shortly.
So at this point, we're not talking very much because we are number crunching.
Oh, that is what we do as scientists. We get the information right so we can get it to you, the viewers.
And it is a form of science. It is something. It's a scientific method. It's something that has evidence. It's something that is provable. It's not just a wishy-washy thing like, you know, some agencies like to name storms based on very little criteria. There's not much scientific about that. But this scale factors in real parameters: the storm size, the storm strength, the rainfall. All very important factors that the Saffir-Simpson scale, apart from the wind speed, doesn't factor in.
Exactly, and this is actually the second installment of the CDPS that we're working with. Devin actually overhauled it at the end of last season to account for more of the rainfall factor instead of the movement speed. That was something that he felt that didn't really represent the destructive potential of the tropical cyclones, and he actually overhauled it to include the rainfall estimates in there, and that is part of the equation that we go through to get this information as accurate as we can.
Latest movement information is that Lekima is moving northwest at 11 miles per hour. So we're going to update all this information on the left-hand panel of your screen as soon as I can get it all up to date. And we'll leave you with it. It does take time because we don't have a backstage team. It's so sad. We're all front of house here.
Yes, we are. Okay, now I just gotta...
Let's switch back to that webcam. That's a live shot from Ishigaki in Japan.
And I just got about this CDPS calculation down. I just have to find the location of what I'm using for the potential landfall location, and then we'll have that all together. Let's see, 25, 139.
So Tim's concentration is quite clear. Isaac.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, about an hour and a half ago, James Reynolds calibrated a Kestrel instrument on the extreme northern tip of Isagi. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. And he reported a pressure of 990 millibars. And that was about an hour and a half ago in extreme northern Isagi.
Yeah, well, the lowest pressure recorded so far is 986.7. There'll be more information in the next hour whether that has fallen. We probably won't be here for that because we're planning to break away shortly and conclude the coverage, but we will leave the automated streaming service running through our nighttime here in the Western Hemisphere and pick back up tomorrow.
All right, Nathan. Just completed the CDPS on Krosa using the island Iwo 2 as a potential landfall. Projected stage 7 on the CDPS now.
Okay, still a stage
For
7
Krosa.
then at this point.
Yep, speaking about Krosa, you can see in the latest frames it's starting to really form its eye there in the last 2 frames. Once it kind of stops there. Yep, see, it forms its eye a little bit there, so it's getting it's increasing in organization here. And again, the GTWC forecasts Krosa to peak as an 80 knot system, and then after that, weaken down to a 75 knot system for about a day or two, and then slowly start to weaken as it heads towards Japan. Here you can see Lekima on the right here, off of the mesoscale that updates every 2.5 minutes. One on the left is off of the full disk of Himawari, which updates roughly every 10 minutes or so, give or take. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, interesting to note, Isaac, that even though it does not look too impressive on the infrared there, it does have some very formidable wind field just going northeast to southwest. Going northwest to south, northeast to southwest, the tropical storm wind field is still well over 400 miles across.
Pretty remarkable. Only going to increase as well.
Yes, it is, and that's not counting the typhoon force winds extending out 50 nautical miles.
Quite significant.
James has posted an update about 47 minutes ago, and it still looks quite windy in Isagi and the north end. He's scouting for camera locations, so hopefully he's able to get good footage of the typhoon.
Yeah, we have one live camera on Cicada on the northwestern side of Ishigaki Island. We also still have a webcam that I'm keeping an eye on in the middle. It's actually on the southeastern side of Taiwan. It's actually in Taipei City itself, which right now cloud cover is getting a little bit darker, but nothing really too bad there at this time.
And I'm looking at radar here behind the scenes, and looks still pretty good. Inner eye wall, outer eye wall still there, albeit a tad weaker than it was earlier, but still ever so present.
And interesting to note that pressures are still slowly falling in Taipei. Right when we went to break, it was 996.1. It is now 995.7 for the pressure in terms of Taipei, and that was as of 15 minutes ago.
So slowly falling down.
Yes, it is.
Well, it's certainly starting to look better on visible, but the infrared speaks a different story.
Yep, that's why you have to look at both sides of the coin per se, because visible may be misleading.
You know
or
what
can
it
be misleading.
does remind me of right now, though?
What?
It reminds me of Joaquin.
Ah,
When you look
that
at that
thing.
imagery, it had that eye, that sort of half deep eye that was there all the time when it was doing its little hook around the Bahamas.
I see. Yeah, I see what you mean. It did that. It couldn't decide whether or not to clear out the eye or not. It was probably one of the worst looking high-end Category 4s I've seen.
And something interesting to note about the JMA, this is as of 2:45 UTC, so this was just as of 11 minutes ago. JMA now running with 10-minute sustained winds of 95 knots on Lekima and pressure at 920 millibars.
Mm. That's quite impressive. Check out Krosa though.
Oh,
Krosa, according to the JMA, 70 knots, 970 millibars.
So they agree with me with the wind speed.
And the JMA has their pressures much lower than ATCF, which is still running with 115 knots, 926 for Lekima, and Krosa at 75 knots, 967 millibars.
Yep, well, we are pretty much reaching the end of our coverage for the time being. We've been talking a lot about these two storms tonight, and it's been, I think, another night of great coverage here, with help from the community as well, as always, and that's what we want more of. What we are going to do is that we're going to leave the automated streaming service running overnight hours, over during the day hours in East Asia today. And that means the chat will stay open, so anyone can relay information through there during those hours whilst we leave our stream running. It means that you won't see any you'll see a lot of information go by that will update on its own, but we won't have any audio at that point, and we'll just be keeping it unattended, which I think is the least we can do during this moment in time. Any final thoughts from the team?
Well, just to keep an eye on both systems, both of them, regardless of their intensities or sizes, are both serious systems. Later down the line, Krosa potentially could impact Japan in some way or form, but we'll have to see on that once the forecast gets more clear. Lekima, of course, those of you guys in the islands of Japan need to watch this really, really closely over the next few hours as it bears down over there, as it gets even closer. And you guys even in Shanghai need to be watching the storm later down the line, potentially, for you guys to even get impacted by it too. So just all in all, pay attention on both of these systems if you're in the forecast cones, and stay safe, really. That's all from me.
Yeah, indeed. If you live anywhere along Iwo 2 or the Gasawara Islands, definitely keep an eye on Krosa that will be coming your way. And if you live in the mainland of Honshu, keep an eye on Krosa. This could be coming your way in the next 4 to 5 days. Anybody that's living on Ishigaki or Miyakojima, definitely be prepared, as Lekima will be coming your way in the next 18 hours or so. And then if you're on mainland China up towards Shanghai or Beijing, you need to be getting prepared. This could be coming your way in the next 2 to 3 days after it does get past Ishigaki and Miyakojima.
David. Is David gone? All right.
I don't know.
Well, there we go.
Muted.
And so have we, I guess.
And it looks like the Ishigaki camera got just a little clearer just as we're getting ready to go off air.
They've zoomed in on it.
It looks like they have.
I saw it happen. They've zoomed in on it.
I will leave this
Oh,
camera
look,
up,
there's
so-
David just
Oh, I had a phone
back
call.
into
No,
the studio. That's great. David,
Hi.
I just wanted a final comment from you before we went off the air tonight.
well, the systems are going to continue to develop, but this time tonight it should be right on a weekly trend.
Alright, well, that's it from our stream tonight. We are sort of semi off the air. We're going to keep the automated stream running, so we've got some visual content. There's going to be no audio content, unfortunately, until the later hours of this evening, local time in East Asia. I'm not sure exactly when we will be back streaming just yet. I think it will be quite early, probably about, trying to work this out in my head right now. What are we going for, guys? 1 PM UTC? Which would make it, we just reached 11 o'clock China time, which means it would then be 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Okay, we got it. 9 p.m. China Standard Time, 10 p.m. Japan time tonight. We'll be back with more rolling coverage throughout the night here on Force 13 Live. We're going to stay with the automated streaming service, and that's it from here in the studio. Good night, and have a safe time over there on those islands. And please keep us informed if you're able and if it's safe to do so. Good night.